Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, NC Rabbit Hole is the newsletter. He is Jeremy Markovich, who was embedded with the governor, Roy Cooper, the state's biggest Carolina Hurricanes fan. Jeremy, what's up, man?
Not much. It was a big night. Watching the game with Roy Cooper is an experience.
I learned a lesson with Governor Roy Cooper. I was at a function and he was there, and the Hurricanes were playing that night. And I got the ESPN app on my phone. It pings me when something happens, and I just made an offhanded comment after I said, "Hey, good to see you. We got to get you on the show soon." Blah 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 blah. And I said, "Oh man, the Canes are getting worked right now." And Roy says to me, "Don't tell me that. Don't spoil it." I'm like, "Wait, oh, he DVRs every game and he tries to stay spoiler free before sitting down and watching it." So experiencing it with him live at PNC Arena on Friday with that insane 4-2 comeback OT win, that had to be a lot of fun with the Gov.
It was a blast. So the whole setup was he actually was on television. Mm-hmm. He was in the broadcast booth for the first. It was just supposed to be the first segment. He stuck around. Nobody's going to tell him to leave.
Of course not. Right.
He was having a good time. He was doing a good job. He was very concerned with Frederick Anderson's status. He complained. He was pressing everybody for inside information. In fact, there was a point on the broadcast where he just turns to Tripp. He goes, "Hey, is Freddie all right?" And so he genuinely wants to know. In fact, he was kind of complaining about. Well, I was like, I talked to Don Waddell, the general manager, and Don said he's fine. But he's like, I just don't like these vague injury reports, and they just say upper body injury. That's not great. He's like, Don could have told me. I wouldn't have told anybody. He's like, I can keep an economic development project secret. Like, I can keep an injury report secret. Just tell me. Like, he's just fishing for any kind of information. Just not because he's like going to go bet on the game or do whatever. Like, right. He is just dying to know like what's going to happen.
Jeremy Markovich, the NC Rabbit Hole, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. That's Joe Ovies. I'm Joe Giglio. All right. I have a very interesting relationship with Governor Cooper. How do you refer to him? Because he was on the broadcast, and Maniscalco and Tripp are like, Mr. Governor, and I'm sitting here going, it's Cooper. Listen, Cooper. Like, do you fall on the reverential scale here?
I mean, he's the governor.
I always try to avoid saying, like, I didn't call him Roy. There was a point where he said, I'm here. I've done the siren before. People boo me, but I don't actually think they're booing me. They're just saying Coop. So I guess I could say Coop, but it never
what did
really
you do? What did you call him?
What'd you call him?
I said Mr. Governor, and then I was Lord. It was just the two of us. I didn't have to shout him down. I wasn't like, hey, Roy, like we need to come over here or something like that. Like it was just we were the only ones there, so I didn't have to refer to him by any kind of name.
Well, but Giglio is built different, man. You're just built different in this case.
Although so Tripp referred to him as baby one time.
He did, yes.
He's like, break it down, baby. And so that was it.
Yeah, they were like very reverential to start, and then yes, we got to the baby part, and I'm like, okay, that's much better.
Yes, and also like, I mean, it was fun. Like, I mean, like Roy kind of busted out the like.
See, it's not that hard.
He's not here.
Yeah, now that we're talking about
Roy. He listens to this program. I promise.
Yeah, but like he busted out like. Somebody said, like, could you grow a beard like Brent Burns? And he was like, no. He's like, I've had one. I look like Festus from Gunsmoke. and it was like, that's a reference that nobody.
That's a deep cut.
You got it.
That's a deep cut, man.
That is a deep cut. So nobody was really prepared for that.
Jeremy Markovich, NC Rabbit Hole is the newsletter. He joins us on Thursdays, and he hung out with Cooper. As Giglio likes to call him. Giglio's still bent out of shape.
He picked Baylor the year they won it.
Yeah, he got a better bracket than Giglio.
He beat me.
That's what he's just upset about that.
It's fine.
He's got inside information. Yeah.
Look, if people ever want, what I don't understand about anybody at a Canes game booing Roy Cooper, this is the guy who I can't prove it, but I can put two and two together. When they were back in the playoffs and they had. This was 2021, and we hadn't quite gotten there yet with mask mandates and how many people you can pack in a room and all that other stuff. It was not lost on me that suddenly rules changed just before a big playoff series and the building was packed that night, mainly because Roy Cooper made sure that they could get everybody in that building. I think the capacity was at 10 grand at one point, but then they bumped it up just in time for the playoffs, because of course they did.
Yeah, you could have that conspiracy theory. I mean, like when he was in, like going to the podium to announce like whatever, it was serious news during COVID.
Yes.
But he rolls up in a mask, and it's a Canes mask, every single time. And people were like sending him like there were pleas from legislators who wanted to open everything up, and they were like trying to use the Canes to be like, hey, you're a big Canes fan, why don't you just open up PNC Arena for everybody? And conversely, I asked Roy Cooper about this. I'm like, is there are there any like closet like hockey fans in the General Assembly? Like, is Tim Moore just gigantic Caniac, just like, and he's like, no, not really, except for Greg Meyer, who's from Orange County, represents Orange County.
Yeah.
And so then that opened the door for me. Like, okay, well, who else has gone to a game with Roy Cooper? What's that like? Because like, you just don't know if he's like kind of putting on a little bit more than he normally would because there's a reporter sitting there next to him for the game.
No.
And Meyer's like, no.
Nope.
He's like, he brought me to the game, and we just like, he did not want to talk about anything but hockey. Like, we sat there, we talked about the trade deadline, we talked about cap issues, we talked about like Jordan.
Did you talk about gambling though?
I was gonna say gambling or marijuana are a couple of our favorite topics with Cooper.
He just like, he sort of brought it up in sort of like a chamber of commerce way. He's like, hockey is exciting. Sports brings a lot of economic development. Sports, the gambling may be coming up. Oh my gosh, they're so lousy on the power play.
He got distracted. Little
Something would happen, he would just lose it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Jeremy Markovich, NC Rabbit Hole, newsletter's out today, embedded with Roy Cooper, the #1 Caniac in the state of North Carolina. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, see y'all.